Welcome back to the Pain Game YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And we have a mega fight on our hands. Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou has been announced. And I love the sweet science as much as the next person, right? Skillful boxers who can hit and don't get hit. But sometimes you want to see the biggest power punchers, the heavy-handed destroyers get in there to smash the living hell out of each other and see who's left standing at the end of it. And that's exactly what we're going to get. Thanks to His Excellency. God, we love you. Whatever your name is. You're a great man. I think it's Turkey, ironically. Not from Turkey. And this man is the Santa Claus of boxing right now. And this is a fight that without him and his big-ass load of money, we would never have seen. So thank you. Because in some respects, it doesn't make a load of sense, this, you know? AJ's on this title run. Francis Ngannou's got one defeat on his record. But it's that defeat that has allowed him to be in these kind of fights. The question is, why is AJ taking this fight? Well, the answer for me, aside from money, is Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury has consistently used his words rather than his fists to defeat Anthony Joshua in belittling his boxing record. But as the years go on, it's AJ's boxing record that gets a little bit better, and Fury's boxing record that comes a little bit more into question, especially after that last event. And if AJ wants to force Fury into taking that fight against him, you have to add as much pressure on as you can, because Fury is a hard man to do business with. And one way you can do that is by fighting all the guys that he fought that he had trouble with and beating them in a far more convincing fashion. And when you look back at it, Fury beat Klitschko by decision, AJ stopped them. Fury beat Wallin by decision, AJ stopped them. Fury barely beat Ngannou, and on one of the judges' scorecards didn't. If AJ goes and stops him, that is another big statement in that you're getting by these guys, I'm destroying them. And if we just assume that Fury loses this Usyk fight, all of a sudden the conversation of who is better from Britain, Fury or AJ, it becomes very interesting then. And AJ then has a big claim, if he has all of these more emphatic victories, to being the #1 British heavyweight. Even AJ's trainer, Ben Davidson, who was Fury's old trainer, is talking about AJ going for the Usyk rematch before Usyk and Fury's even taken place. Now, I'm not saying Ben Davidson thinks Fury's going to lose, but why are you not saying the winner of? And even Deontay Wilder, who AJ hasn't fought, who was ran through by Parker, now even that win doesn't have quite the same shine that it used to have on the Fury record. Now, despite the problems Francis Ngannou gave Tyson Fury, a lot, and most of the people I watch, even on YouTube and my mates, are all saying this is a routine win for Anthony Joshua. Look, he got lucky. Fury didn't take him seriously, and AJ just has all the tools to beat him. And that might be true. I'm going to talk about that a bit later, but this is expected of AJ to be a comfortable win. And this is going to be a hard one for me, because I like both of these guys, and I'm a fan of both. You know, with the Francis Ngannou journey, it gets more and more amazing by the day. And I think I seen a tweet the other day that said, in 2012, Anthony Joshua was winning the Olympic gold medal, and Francis Ngannou was homeless at that point. It's mind-blowing what Francis Ngannou is achieving. And when you look at the way he was treated by Dana White before all this jump into boxing happened, he wanted to box. Dana could have signed him as a UFC fighter, let him box, and increase the value of the UFC heavyweight title by going, look at how good the UFC is. We've got a heavyweight here who's giving your boxers problems, struggling with him when he isn't even a boxer. It could only have helped the UFC. But Dana, being the way he is and needing absolute control over all of his fighters, denied that offer to Francis Ngannou. And then when Francis decided to make the switch to boxing, belittled him, said he has no business being in the ring with him. And I don't really blame him for thinking that, because what Francis has done is miraculous. But it's his overall treatment of UFC fighters that's been exposed by Francis more than anything. In that, when you leave, we trash you. We don't give you the respect that you deserve being a former heavyweight champion. Just like Randy Couture, we trash you. The difference is with Francis is he is firmly having the longest and loudest last laugh over Dana White here. He has completely outsmarted him. And when you look at the state of the UFC heavyweight division right now, where a rightful #1 contender is being denied his chance to fight for the undisputed title due to politics, where two older fighters who are clearly not as good as the Hungry Lion right now in Tom Aspinall are being protected, it just looks even worse and worse and worse for the UFC, this fight right now. AJ versus Ngannou is bigger than anything the UFC will do this year, including Conor McGregor, in my opinion. Because the Conor McGregor now, the clamour for him, the demand to watch him fight after one win in 7 years is nowhere near what it was. Don't even talk to me about that. You can see Conor McGregor McGregor, even in the Saudi interviews he's given, is jealous of the freedom that Francis Ngannou to be able to go over there and steal the show like this. Francis has outsmarted Dana White here. And one of the main quotes when he left was, Francis doesn't want tough competition. He wants easy fights. Meanwhile, you're giving your current heavyweight champion, John Jones, a fight against Stipe Miocic, who's got one win in God knows how many years, fought once in the last, 4 years or whatever it is, has no business being in a title fight. The last fight he had, he got smashed to bits by Francis Ngannou. And Francis, who wants the easy fights, in his first 2 fights, is fighting Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. And just to be clear, AJ, Deontay Wilder, Alexander Usyk, Tyson Fury, the 4 of them have only fought one of the other 3 guys each once. Francis is doing 2 in his first 2 boxing matches. So don't ever question the gangster of Francis Ngannou ever in your life. You know all that shit about Tyson Fury being a fighting man and all of that? This is the real fighting man. There ain't no anywhere, anytime, any fucking martial art you want, bro. He is down to fight. And now because of the different business models, Saudi are going to put on the biggest fights in fighting, including the UFC. The UFC now, they're not looking for pay-per-view stars. They're not trying to build stars. If anything, they want to suppress them so they maintain control over the fight league. They don't want another Conor McGregor. If anything, as you can see, they're happy to let McGregor rot. They're happy to let fighters rot. Whereas Saudi are literally grabbing the biggest and best and putting them on against each other. The rules have reversed now. And it's funny that Fury's made all these comments about AJ being a bodybuilder and the size and shape of Francis Ngannou. They should define this as Battle of the Bodybuilders. And with these amazing Saudi trailers that they make, have AJ and Francis like Terminators, half their face and like machines underneath. Love that. Take that and run with it. You're welcome. But it's a hard fight to predict. Even though I agree with everything that I'm being told by my friends, by the YouTubers I watch, that this should be a routine win for Anthony Joshua, given that in 2012 AJ was winning Olympic gold medals. People are looking at the Fury fight and dismissing all of the problems Fury had and going, yeah, but we'd never seen Francis before. I get it. There's footage on Francis now, which makes him, easier to prepare for to some degree. But Tyson Fury's IQ was never his problem. Tyson Fury moving around with a heavyweight for a couple of rounds, he should then be able to figure him out. To a certain extent he did, but he didn't figure him out to a point where he was hurting him. And some of these problems are just that he is that damn good of an athlete, Ngannou. He's made of fucking stone. He couldn't hurt him. Now I agree, Fury doesn't hit as hard as AJ, and therefore that gives him, better tools for this job. And I think AJ possibly is stylistically one of the worst matchups Ngannou can have, because he's one of the few guys out there who can match him as an athlete in many ways. But there's things that first fight didn't show. Francis Ngannou was in his first ever boxing match that night. Do you really think that that's the best he's ever going to perform? Tell me anything, ever, where you've seen someone do their very best attempt at something first time out. It stands to reason that Francis, logically, should be better in this second fight than he was in his first fight. Full camp behind him, training only boxing, more rounds sparred, more understanding after being in there with the Gypsy King, more confidence from the fact that I've put the Gypsy King down and he's supposedly the best in the world. How could any of these things make Francis worse in the second fight? Another thing is Francis didn't really throw his best shot that much, which is his big right hand. Believe me, after watching his whole career in MMA, when that lands, it only takes once. There's things that people are just overlooking, and I think that this is a very dangerous fight for Anthony Joshua. Despite AJ being one of the best athletes I've ever seen and having all of that experience, that should make him without doubt the favourite for this fight. When was the last time that AJ fought a dangerous power puncher? You could argue Andy Ruiz, and even then I wouldn't say Andy Ruiz is the hardest hitting heavyweight. He's got fast, dangerous hands. He got put down multiple times the first time, and then in the second fight AJ resorted to very defensive tactics that would enable him to jab and move, not get into a firefight. But part of the reason he could do that is because Andy Ruiz has got legs the size of Tyrion Lannister. Game of Thrones reference. Really short guy. No disrespect. He's a very odd shape, Andy Ruiz, right? He's got a real big upper body, tiny little legs, and he's not good at closing the distance, whereas AJ has got the perfect build to keep the distance. Francis Ngannou hasn't got little stubby legs and is going to struggle to close the distance with you. He is every bit as big as AJ. Very long arms, wingspan that he could fly like an eagle if he probably flapped his arms hard enough. It's not going to be as easy to keep the distance as it was against Andy Ruiz. Andy Ruiz came into that fight very fat, overweight, and underprepared. Mentally, not ready. for Anthony Joshua. And Francis Ngannou is not going to come in out of shape and not ready to pull the trigger. Francis Ngannou always will pull the trigger. He hasn't gone through all this shit in life to turn up against Anthony Joshua and shit himself. No way. You will have moments where the question will be asked of Anthony Joshua of, how bad do you want this, mate? I just don't think it's going to be as easy as Ruiz too, and some people are suggesting that's the formula, that's what works. Ngannou ain't no Andy Ruiz, mate. Total different animal. And look, I know Tyson Fury doesn't hit as hard as AJ, but the chin of Francis is another problem. He's very hard to hurt. AJ is very good at getting that respect, commanding the ring when he wants to, and controlling a fight through the power that he has. And his knowledge of how to do that is obviously going to be superior to Francis. But there's a possibility that Francis is just more of a fucking man. And by that I mean, he's willing to take one of yours to give one of his and keep playing that game. And if he's got a better chin than Anthony Joshua, which I suspect he does, after watching him get belted with 4-ounce gloves on through ground and pound and various other head kick moments and all of these elbows he's eaten up. As much as I give the advantage in skill, technique and ring IQ to Anthony Joshua, toughness, I'm going Francis all fucking day. And power, we're probably not going to realise until we see them throwing down with each other who actually wins that battle. But it's a fucking dangerous fight, man. Remember, like, Fury has a good chin. And Fury got dropped off him and got back up. But what's to say that AJ does get back up? And people just seem to be overlooking these quite flippantly. Like, yeah, it's just a routine win. And don't get me wrong, I can see how that could happen if AJ sets traps. You know, lots of feints. Gets Francis doing that thing where he's trying to pull, the jab down and gets a bit befuddled by everything coming at him. But Francis is quite good at handling that because of his faith in his chin. I'm not going to be frightened of getting hit by you. And a lot of these guys, like Otto Wallen, certainly was. I think AJ can set the traps, work off the jab, control the fight, but he just needs to be mentally ready for when the fire comes. And I think he wasn't against Ruiz, and we've seen what that led to. And then in the second fight, he was ready. But I don't want him too tentative. This is the balance that AJ has been working on with Ben Davidson, and if he finds the balance, he should win. But there's just this fucking possibility that you can hit Francis as hard as you want, and he's still there, and he's hitting you fucking just as hard back. And at that point, it's not about boxing technique anymore, and that's kind of what Francis needs to turn this into, is a proper scrap. Almost like the Dillian White versus AJ fight. And we know AJ doesn't want to fight like that anymore because he's changed his style deliberately to avoid that. He wants to fight smart. I completely understand everyone picking AJ, and I obviously would make AJ the favourite as well. But for anyone dismissing Francis Ngannou, have you learned nothing? Prepare to be shocked again if you don't respect them, because anything can happen when Francis Ngannou is throwing punches at another man. Anything can happen. And I get why AJ's taking this fight in a way. Look, the Hrgovic fight was set up for him to become a champion should one of Usyk or Fury be stripped after the unification. But you don't know how long that's going to take. So AJ's got to think here, right? Is it worth me waiting around for a Hrgovic fight that may or may not be for a title when I've got a mega fight with Francis here? We're building this relationship with Saudi Arabia, and it keeps me ticking over where I can then show my skills, show I'm better than Fury by doing a job on Ngannou that Fury, let's be real, was not capable of. I had Tom Aspinall on my podcast. He said he knows for a fact Fury trained hard for Ngannou. Didn't take him lightly, like everyone likes to kid themselves. Francis Ngannou is just a bad man. This for me is one of the most exciting dream fights in a long time. Real big fan of both guys. Out of interest, if you are predicting this fight below, let me know who you're going to call it for, because I don't know who I'm going to give this to. I'm going to do a full prediction video later, but we have got so many great fights coming up. Make sure you stay subscribed to the Pain Game. I'm going to be breaking them all down. We've got Usyk, Fury, Ryan Garcia's fighting soon. You've got Deontay Wilder versus Zhang apparently on the undercard. We're spoiled for choice. Let me know before I go who you're picking early on right now. Can Ngannou upset AJ, or is AJ going to dominate? How do you see the fight going? Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the Pain Game YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.